I was going to introduce Michael, but he's got so many things I can't introduce him. So I said he's got to introduce himself. So with that,
smooth, well
Michael Jensen.
Hey there. Thanks for coming out. I'm really delighted to see so many people. And so many people with gray hair. That's all right with me. So number, good. How many of you go online once a day or more? Okay, so how many of you feel like you understand artificial intelligence? Well, I hope that I can walk through this and make some sense of it. Please ask questions. Don't be shy. The whole point of this is for me to make sense of things, and so if I'm not making sense, stop me, ask a question, clarify, because if you have a question, 5 other people do too, and aren't saying it. So please don't be shy. All right, so today I hope to go through these things at least and to give you a context for them. So what is artificial intelligence? What is artificial general intelligence? And I'll look into that. You may have seen the word algorithm, and it confused me for years when I was in the business. So I'll try and explain that. What's an LLM? How does it work? Should I trust it? Is it going to take over the world and kill us all? These are questions that are coming up, and it's worth sort of addressing. We aren't facing data centers right now, thank goodness, but it could happen. So I've spent 35 years in IT, got involved with the internet before the web. Most important is I've always been a tech translator. I've been a person who tries to explain what a database is to somebody who only used file cabinets, or that was just my role in almost all my professional capacities. A few years ago, I retired to build things that don't make any money on purpose. I mean, there are things that need to be built that are not profitable, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit. So here are the IT revolutions I've seen. Databases, email, Web 1, Web 2, which is social media. Consolidation and monetization means profit making happened in Web 3. Right now we're in the realm of monopolies, digital monopolies, huge companies. They are extracting money from us. They're adapting the pricing depending on who you are. I mean, there's all sorts of nefarious stuff going on, and the surveillance society is a question too. And then we have all these little different
Slower.
Thank you. Different silos of information that we're all kind of trying to navigate within. So these are each of these revolutions were thought to be like world-changing, and they were. The web was transformative. It's changed our lives. It's changed sort of what we think is possible and what we want to see happen. These revolutions may be pale compared to this next big one. So, what artificial intelligence is, it's not even clear because there are lots of different kinds of artificial intelligence. The field of machine learning has been around for decades, many decades, 4 or 5 decades. So this is not new, but what's new is the technology to make some of this happen, and I'll explain some of these things too. But if a machine can learn and problem solve and reason and perceive, understand the world, and can perform things independently, that's artificial intelligence. Because it's the machinery doing things on its own that makes us, that we can say, go do these things, it will do them. Yes?
Can you give us an example
Of
machine learning?
Of machine learning. Take a look at this bloodstream. Look at the images of the cells. Tell me what proportion of them are sickle cells and what proportion are normal cells. Oh. So, do that, and then it would do that and say, well, I know the patterns of of sickle cells, I know the patterns of normal cells, and so I can compare, and it can do that kind of filtering super fast, faster than humans can. Yes?
Well, when I got these new hearing aids, I was told that they have artificial intelligence.
Of course they did. Yeah, because it's like it's the big buzzword. Oh, I've got artificial intelligence in my ears, you know. And it might be in the sense that they embedded software in the chips that are inside your hearing aid that recognize a continuous kind of sound to filter it out, or can tell the difference between who you're talking to and what's noise around you. And so those sort of things are really useful. I mean, pretty amazing, in fact. And that's part of what we have to learn how to discriminate between the things that are useful and the things that we control versus the things that somebody else is controlling.
Michael,
Yeah.
could, with learning, because someone asked me this one day, why they asked me, I don't know, because I don't know how you interact with it, if we're starting to use it, how you interact with it, whether you're nice or not to it, does it learn that behavior?
There's been some interesting analysis of that it tends to respond faster if you're mean, but it doesn't end up, it depends on which one we're talking about too, but it ends up trying hard to answer the question faster in ways that mean that it's not as trustworthy an answer.
Okay.
So if you're a jerk, you won't get good answers. So, you know, like everything else, don't be a jerk. That's the way we live. Okay. So this is the fear, though, is that the singularity will happen. You may hear about this if you're reading around. That moment when the AI becomes self-aware and can make itself be its own team and can self-repair itself and self-program and say, oh gosh, how can I learn everything there is to know in the world? And there are people who believe strongly that this is just around the corner. And it's worth remembering that artificial intelligence has been 5 years away for 35 years, as far as I know. And it's always been 5 years away. Just around the corner. It's going to happen any time. So, should we be scared? You can't read most of this, so let me read it to you. On the left is now. This is a timeline. Then comes AI becomes advanced enough to control unstoppable swarms of killer robots.
I saw that movie just the other day.
Exactly. And then there's, the AI becomes self-aware and rebels. But the part that this cartoonist worries about is down here, which is from here to there, in between these two, because AI can now be used to control killer robot swarms. But it's under the control of people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the military could be doing this. ICE could be doing this kind of thing. Right? So there are real worries about what this stuff will do.
So the answer to the question is yes.
The answer to the question, which question?
The question is, should we be scared?
Yes.
Yes.
We should be alert and aware and nervous about misuse by power.
Which is
Always.
Always. Exactly. Most of these things are pretty common sense, except we're all kind of blown away by the fact that it uses language. And here is how it uses language. I'm going to go off on a little historic side tangent in a minute. You'll have to be patient with me. So a large language model really is only one possibility, but it's the most attractive to these geeks who are turning giant warehouses into data centers. It's the first model of using computers that could really talk in English. Almost exclusively English, just so you know. There's translation engines and things, but most of this LLM stuff is it's analyzing all the language that it can to be able to make sense of language. So it is not it's not really clear why, well, I think I know why. Why are trillions of dollars being invented and invested and applied to build these giant LLMs that just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger based on one model that is unproven, that hasn't been shown to actually be miraculous, except that it seems to talk. It has analyzed the patterns of language sufficiently to be able to say this is a likely sentence. These words in this sequence are likely. These are the average uses of these words in these sequences. And that's the algorithm that is being used to analyze a ton of content. Here's my little sidebar. So back in 1998, almost 30 years ago, this is the other thing that some of you may know. I'm actually her husband. So this is and we were both doing the farm. So in '98, I thought, well, it's .com mania. I'll become a trillionaire with this great idea. So it was a great idea, in fact. But I built some tools to do language processing, to identify, because the idea that I had was, gosh, wouldn't it be great if I could have one article and then say, click, give me lots more like this. So I had to identify language within the article, or within the book, or within the whatever, and then go search Google a zillion times and bring a bunch of stuff back and pull language out. I then realized, well, I'd have to give up my family, my children's childhoods. I might be able to make $1 zillion or I might not, but the point is I was going to be unhappy. So I decided not to do the .com thing because it would have taken me entirely away from my family. I got a job at the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, also the National Academy of Engineering, the National Academy of Medicine, National Research Council. Big organization, scientific pinnacle sort of organization. And I was in charge of their online publishing system. Here we have the book-length reports put together by experts on how much arsenic should we have in drinking water. So, really specific topics. But it was engineering for some, and it was medicine for others, and it was raw science or whether aeronautics or whatever the report would be, 5,000 plus or minus. So I wanted to apply these tools to that so that our visitors, we had 1.5 million visitors every month.
Wow.
It was fun, super fun. Could find more like it, or could drop their research paper into a form and then push a button and it would bring back the 10 or 20 reports of the National Academy of Sciences that would pertain to their research, to their own documents.
So like a library? Is that?
Well, it was like a library of books that we had 5,000 reports, and I was trying to figure out how you get a user to be able to find the 8 reports on climate change or whatever the topic might be, as well as other interactive things. And the marketing department, once I applied these things, was like, well, geez, we don't even have to look for what's, related titles. This is doing it. So we had clean text, no typos, no garbage, and nonetheless, I found 10% or more of the terms I was pulling out were broken, were mutants, made no sense. They were meaningless. Research foundation doesn't mean anything. Committee the committee. Interest the chancellor. Those have nothing to do with patent rights. I mean, it does in the context of the article, but in terms of just raw words, they don't really mean much. So that's step one. So now let me define algorithm for you, because really it's a recipe. So you make bread, you got flour, you got water, you sometimes have an egg, you sometimes don't. You have some salt,
Yeast,
yeast,
sugar,
that's
sometimes.
right. And a recipe says, do this, use this much of that, use this much of that, and out will come the bread. So, certain tasks, particular order, certain ingredients to accomplish a goal. The large language models are sucking up everything it can possibly get its hands on because it wants to understand words and sentences and paragraphs and larger things. And so you've got, well, the thing to pay attention to for this image is that it's not just the stuff on the counter. It's also the stuff being vacuumed off the floor.
Yeah.
It is, well, is it the next one? Yes. Honestly, we're talking about the internet. The internet is way more than 10%. But the problem is they don't know what the 10% of their collection is that is useless, and it's more than that. So what they have is a system that what these AI companies are doing is looking at every document as if it's the same. They call it a bag of words. This is like a term of art, the bag of words. And run them through their algorithms, their recipes, that let them pretend that they understand what it means. But the human language is really complicated, and this is why I took you on that little side thing, is that I really worked hard to try to figure out how language worked structurally. And it's more than words. It is lots more than just words. Phrases are pretty good, but context matters. Whether this is, if you're saying, this is dumb, or this is smart, there's a whole lot of other stuff that comes beforehand that is looking at the whatever experimental work or what somebody said about this or that or the other. And you and I all know that truth matters. There's a real world that we live in. When it rains, we get wet, right? This is the thing, is that LLM AIs are good at seeming to use language, at pretending to respond as if it matters. Artificial intelligence systems don't know the difference, literally don't know the difference between truth and lies. It only has the reality of what it's been analyzing, which is the internet, which is every comment, every, you're a jerk, every bit, every video, every audio, every podcast, every comment.
It's like you said about the hearing aid, what she can get out of her hearing aid. I get the same thing out of my hearing aids, and they didn't tell me that.
It was AI. Right,
AI.
yeah, it was a good sales technique to make them think it's super modern, which is reasonable. So yes, what AI does is it gives a really great facsimile of language and words and communication and meaning, but it has nothing except what it has analyzed to understand what reality is. And so it makes stuff up because it seems appropriate.
There's a generation coming that's not going to know what to believe and what not.
That is correct.
We have the privilege of growing up in a time when we can differentiate, but 10, 12, 15-year-olds are not going to know what. That's the scary thing, I think.
Yep.
My kids aren't going to know what they believe, what they read versus what's not.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it is a real concern because it's so easy to say, oh, well, AI said X, and to do the thinking for them. And this is why this last bit, really be careful so that they don't think for you. LLM AI is really bad at energy use. Hugely expensive, with both water and energy. It doesn't understand sarcasm. So if I say, well, that sure is good, we all know what I meant, which is it's not good.
No.
But AI does not understand irony or sarcasm or wit or humor or what makes people laugh. Because that's a very human thing, and it's usually in relation to something real. And these systems don't know what an allusion is, what a metaphor is. They don't remember very much either. This is really remarkable. And it can't explain itself. One of the truths about Google, which I learned a couple of years ago, is that they have this amazing translation system, right? Google Translate, you hold it up to the menu, and it gives you the menu with the words transformed into English. And that's fabulous. You know, you can do that in Greece, you can do it in Turkey, you can do it in Italy. You know, it'll do it. Well, that's cool. The engineers at Google don't know why it works. Because it goes in between English and something and gives you Greek. And they don't know the something. But it works. But they don't know why. So it's translating a language from one language to another imaginary language to a real language. And what? You know, and it self-taught itself. This is part of that self-teaching. So it's cool, but you know, translations are more than just word for word. Anyway, menus work, but philosophy doesn't. So it also doesn't know what it doesn't know. If it doesn't know, it just makes it up. Because it has a percentage that says this is sufficient. Where there's a little bit of yes there.
Michael,
Yes.
when you talk about, I think you said energy, using energy, do you mean the big data centers or something?
Yeah, the big data centers that are going all the time and generating heat at a huge rate
So it's
and
maybe-
using, sorry?
If this AI keeps going, we're going to have massive amounts of data centers.
It won't.
Oh.
This is the, let me say that if you have money in the stock market that has to do with AI, I would maybe move it to something like trades. Because, okay, I mean, you know, it is, let me continue. So why is the 1% going crazy like this? What's happened is that Amazon has committed X amount of stock value to be able to build this data center in exchange for this kind of commitment for these chips. It's all funny money. It's not real money. It's just imaginary. And so they have something to pour their money into. We as a species anthropomorphize, meaning we turn anything into a human. Oh, that car is so tired today. You know, that rocker's creaking, it's as old as I am, you know. I mean, we put those kind of human-like qualities on things. And if you're using language, well, what else? You know, that is the defining characteristic. We are tuned as humans to think anything that uses language is talking to us. And that includes our pets, you know. Oh, she's so glad to see me. Well, maybe she's hungry. But, you know, we attribute that to them because we love our dogs or cats. Also, remember who these people are. These 1%ers, the head of Amazon, head of Facebook, head of SpaceX.
Tesla.
Right. Some people we don't even name. These are either children of privilege or geeks and nerds. And they are not you're normal humans. I gotta say, I have known programmers, really good programmers, and they are not really human. They are, you know, they're sweet and all, but mostly they're in their heads, and they were never, they never wrote poetry to their girlfriend, you know, or their boyfriend, but mostly girlfriend. I mean, that was not part of their self-identity, words. And so they think words are magic because
They don't understand.
they don't understand them. That's right, and they can't generate them. So having something produced, like an essay, just by pushing a button, it's like, oh, it's magic. It must be real. And it's not. So they also want to monopolize. They want, you know, Amazon wants to be the AI. So does ChatGPT. So does Grok. So do these other ones. And they have always been of the belief that bigger is better. And in this case, if you have diamonds and donuts and shit in a mix, you can use it as a fertilizer, and then you lose the diamonds. Or you can be willing to like go through for the diamonds, but you're never gonna eat the donuts, right? Ever. You're just not gonna. So when you have that kind of mix, you have to be careful of what you pick out of it and what you're using it for. And bigger is not always better for this case, because it's just a bigger bag of diamonds and donuts and shit. So no matter how big the bag is, it's going to be some proportion. So in some, sort of, I did a little bit more. In some, never trust the judgment or the opinion or the analysis or the interpretation that AI gives you. Sometimes the facts are good, and it's useful to kind of harvest a bunch of facts. But you have to presume that more than 10% of the time, it has no clue about what the truth is, what the world is, what the things that are happening next are. It is a serious issue for many of us. There are ways that, like your hearing aid or your hearing aid, that AI can be useful. And I use that example of blood. The same thing is true for molecules, material science, archaeology. They now can fly over an area, and by using AI, pattern matching, because that's what we're talking about, just pattern matching of the high order, to identify the tree cover, to say, oh, over here, it's several hundred years newer. It grew up over something. That's probably a settlement that got cleared and has grown up over the last couple hundred years. Because it's a little bit of a different color and it's a pattern that can be seen that doesn't match. So, that's super cool to be able to identify places to do an archaeological dig that you wouldn't have known otherwise. Same thing with chemistry. They're finding, black holes by the scads in the astronomical analysis, and my personal favorite, programming. Because programming is, the code is often public. It's called open source. Has a limited vocabulary, not a lot of words, not nuanced words like English, but just action. There's no sarcasm, nothing to interpret. Either it works or it doesn't work. And generally speaking, the stuff that doesn't work doesn't get made public. So it's a self-limiting thing. So it is changing what's possible in some really interesting ways, and I think it will affect rural living in some interesting ways as well. As an example, some of you may know I have been working on this thing called the Town of Nova Scotian Commons, which is a site for the community. My developer and I have been working for more than a couple years on this. Since AI kicked in, I started working on local lendables, which is a tool for a small community, like West Branch perhaps, to have a system to allow you to keep track of who you loaned what to when you said you'd get it back, and who has those sort of things. So to be able to search for somebody with a post hole digger, you don't have to go to Home Hardware to buy a post hole digger, you borrow it from Michael. And there's a QR code on there that you can use your phone to see when it's due and return it, and it's just clever as all get out. But that's 9 months of my time, not even my developer's time, it's just me. And while I was doing that, other work on carpools, things that are not big money makers, but are it's the sharing economy.
Yeah.
How do we have a sharing economy? We have to have an infrastructure for a sharing economy, and that's what I'm kind of trying to build. So, and a few other projects as well. So that's been super helpful and super illuminative about, like, I've understood things about AI that I hadn't before because I've been working with them. So the implications for folks like us. For the most part, all of software has been written for the urban environment, for high population density places, because that's where the money is. You know, it's where all the business happens and that kind of stuff. But we have a different set of needs in our rural communities. With these AI tools, large, huge, you don't need venture capital. You don't need a big investment to make some of these things happen. What I can do this year is going to be what somebody else could do next year and what you can do the year after that, probably. In the sense that once these tools are in place, we can adapt them in lots of ways to build our own social network that fits our own needs, interests, community. Scottsburn has that lovely garden. You know, how do you work out sort of when things are, wouldn't it be great if there's a little way to find out what's coming ripe next week that all of us could sort of share in on? Well, that's not a big money maker, but it's still very useful for rural folks. So we could build tools for the future that we want, not the ones that they want us to want. And that's what's happening with Facebook. That's what happens with most of these giant systems, is they know what they want us to want. They want us to want to spend money.
Yeah.
And they have, one of the things, how far off am I? What time is it?
Yeah.
Almost time. Okay, sorry, this is going, I'm almost done, really. If I'm Facebook, oh hush. If I'm Facebook, I have literally trillions of interactions.
Can I turn it off?
Yes. Speaking of Facebook, yes, trillions of interactions all the time that are going on, and they can look at them and see what works best. And if a light blue is more compelling than a dark blue, they'll do A/B testing. Try it out. On this, 1 million people get the light blue, 1 million people get the slightly darker blue, and then they can tell, oh, we're going to use the dark blue from here on. And so they can make it super compelling and super, pull you in, and you'll discover, oh, it's been 20 minutes that I've been doom scrolling without even realizing it. If you have your phone, go ahead and, whoops, nobody's getting their phone out. So, okay, I'll just, it doesn't matter. It just means that you'll have this on your phone. These are discussion points, really. What could we strengthen locally? What institutions do we need to be paying attention to? What's important that we used to have? We used to have newspapers. How do we get information? Well, there's, you talk, but it's not the same as a newspaper. The scheduling of things, who knew that, anyway. So what do we do about that? How do we build something that we might use? What if we could lend out all that stuff that's gathering dust in our garages? We wouldn't have to buy as much, especially if we knew that we could plan on it. If we could coordinate commuters, people drive to Truro every day and come back from Truro every day. They should not drive alone. They should save the $10 a day that they're spending by sharing the ride with somebody. Same thing with trips to the airport. How do we coordinate volunteerism? How do we do all these things so that we have the future that we want to have? So we're at the beginning of this, and it'll be going on for a while. Let's keep on talking. Now's the time for questions or for statements, or for we really ought to be able to X, Y, Z, do these other things. And what sort of questions can I answer? It's been a little longer than I expected, but we do have chili waiting for us. So shall we have chili?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Michael.